coming close. Let me draw you in. So today on Dotson's Corner, we can talk about the 10 biggest draws inside of the UFC. You see what I did there?
Yeah, we're talking about pay-per-view draws. Who is the biggest names?
Wait, I thought we were talking about who we want to draw the most.
Oh, you're right. Good one.
Oh.
That's getting cut, by the way.
I'm
cutting that out of the video.
No.
What I'm trying to say, the criteria, how we judge this on, if the entire pay-per-view card, even their opponent, was erased, and it was one fighter on the card, and you had to buy the pay-per-view, because obviously everyone's buying pay-per-view nowadays. If it was just this one person, how many buys are they doing? I didn't they're doing 600K. I just did a ranking.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
All right, starting at 10. I have a tie. Lucas allowed it. It's a couple of Oceanic boys. I have Israel Adesanya and Alexander Volkanovski tied at number 10.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
I'm talking about 2025. Looking after that Imavov fight, Adesanya may not get as many pay-per-view buys anymore.
I agree, bro. He's getting banished to the Apex after this. That's interesting.
It was tough though, because it's like where do you find that line of like the older guys? Because you're still gonna have that older demographic who's actually probably buying the pay-per-views. Those are the dummies buying the pay-per-views. Those blue collar workers.
What do you mean the dummies, bro? Everyone does it, right?
Oh yeah, we're dummies too.
Yeah, sponsor us.
But it's for work.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, Adesanya and Volk, I couldn't really pick between the two of them. It was
they go hand in hand.
Yeah, like at this point. We have 314 where Volk's headlining it. I don't know if he's getting like the most amount of pay-per-view buys ever. If you have the guys ahead of him main eventing that card, you probably get more, but you're still getting the pay-per-view buys because people love Volk still.
I'm so interested to see who you have like in your top 7 then. Like I'm so interested. For my number 10, I went with someone who's still like a big name, but they're not in that title contention. I went with Max Holloway.
Ooh, okay.
Because I think he still draws in like a huge range of audience. The younger fans know him from the clips.
Love him.
Like the dude clip farms like no one else, and he actually does it right. Mm-hmm. He actually aura farms properly. We talk about aura farming all the time on this channel. And then you have that older demographic.
I'm gonna tell people I'm a farmer, and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" Aura. Oh, is that like a new type of grain?
That's so dumb, bro. That's so dumb. But then he still draws in like that older demographic of the featherweight when he was champion. Mm-hmm. You have those probably they're like 30 years old, those old heads now, 30, 35, and they love Max Holloway.
Those unks out there.
The unks who watched him on the come up. So I got Max Holloway at number 10, and I think he does a lot of pay-per-view buys just by himself.
But it's so tough.
Just go for it. Well, I want to hear your list.
Here's my thing is I don't know if he gets the most pay-per-view buys. Maybe he does. Maybe we're biased on him. I don't love it.
Just go.
But number 9, I have Charles Oliveira.
Oh, that's fair.
I'm going to bring up one of my honorable mentions, Dustin Poirier. That's the guy I was like teetering with because I think that both of them would get similar pay-per-view buys because I think that they're all grouped in that old heads where if they're fighting for the belt as the challenger, everyone's watching that. They're like, oh, we want to see him get back to the top, know? And I think we saw that with UFC 302 where Poirier was going back to the top.
Yeah.
But it's tough because they're also still on the way out,
Yeah.
But if you had a fight night, we had Adesanya main event that fight night. If you had a fight night main event by Adesanya, Volk, Poirier, Charles, it's 100% going to be the number 1 fight night of the year, most likely. Is the thing with it. And if they're in a pay-per-view, the guys ahead of them are probably selling more pay-per-views than them now. But that's just the point that we're at right now.
Yeah, I think Charles is still one of the biggest stars
and he's so lovable. People love him. They want to watch him fight, and he's going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, I think when you have the stats of the most finishes, the most bonuses, it sells itself. You don't need to sell Charles Oliveira. Mm-hmm. For my number 9 pick, though, I went with Sean O'Malley.
Okay.
Part of the reason why I made this video is because I think he's overrated as a draw for pay-per-views. I think you can look at his social media following. I think he has about 4.3 million followers, which is very
I actually
good.
Had all their followers listed beside them, but then when I put them in, I erased it.
Yeah, I think he has about 4.3, 4.5 around there. So he's obviously popular with a younger demographic, but if we're talking strictly pay-per-view tuning in buys, let's just call it tuning into the pay-per-view at this point. Yeah. Because ain't no one buying that.
Oh. Except for us.
Yes.
We buy it.
We love to buy the pay-per-views and support Dana White and underpaid fighters. Anyways, I don't think Sean O'Malley captures the right audience who are watching a full pay-per-view or a main card. Think about our friends who know Sean O'Malley.
They ain't watching 7 hours.
They don't watch pay-per-views that much.
They on their phone until the main event.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I just don't think that he has that star power that the UFC built him up to be, especially with the fact that he hasn't been around for a long time. If he's a staple of the bantamweight division, like Charles is for lightweight, or even Dustin or Gaethje, like, sure, he could build up that because you want to see him fight and you know that he gets highlight KOs, but he's just been around for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
all right, my number 8, the guy you just mentioned, I swear I have Sugar Sean O'Malley. Wow. I think it's tough because he is the guy that the UFC wanted to build around. So you have all that hype and all like the promotion that they put into this guy. You know, 2 years ago, it was basically set that he was going to be the face of the UFC. You know, they're like, this is our new Conor, you know, so you have all that hype and you have the outside hype that he has, you know, every single 25-year-old dude who is going to go out and he's going to watch the Sean O'Malley fight because of his connection with like the Nelk Boys and Happy Dad and Full Send and all that whole connection, you know, that world, that lore, you know, so he has that. He doesn't have the older demographic and he has that younger demographic, so he's missing the unk status demographic, you know, whereas the rest of the guys higher up on this list, I think they kind of capture in everyone. Yeah. You know, he's missing out on those old heads.
That's what I think. He's missing out on a big demographic who actually watch pay-per-views.
Yeah, they'll watch all 7 hours and drink a 12-pack.
That's what I'm saying. All right, my number 8, I got Dustin Poirier, someone who was on your honorable mentions list. I think, I'll paint the picture here. I don't think regularly he would be the biggest pay-per-view draw. I don't think he'd be top 10 even 2 years ago. But in this point in time, when we are making this video, he has one more fight left. That is the sole reason I put him on this list. He has one more fight left, and everyone who's been watching UFC for the past 10 years knows Dustin Poirier.
Well, and they know him because he's fought every single big name.
Exactly.
You know, every single big name that's been around him in divisions, he's fought every single one of them. So he's built himself up through those losses.
Yeah, so you know that it's his last fight. So if you see his name on the pay-per-view and that's all we're going by, you have to tune in for his last dance. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, poetry.
I like that. All right, my number 7. This is probably the one that the name that doesn't fit the rest of the names. That's where I have Khamzat Chimaev at number 7. Dude has
Leon Edwards, bruv.
9.8 million Instagram followers.
It's insane, bro.
Like, I'm sorry, but like, are they allowed to watch pay-per-view wherever?
Chechnya?
Are they allowed to? Like,
bro, I don't even know where he's from anymore. He's lived so many places.
Yeah, and I swear his flag in his corner changes every time.
Oh, 100%.
He just got to pull the MVP and just international fighter.
It's not a bad idea.
At this point. But, I mean, I was kind of thinking that, like, you know, maybe he'd be on here. He made the shortlist, and then I went to the Instagram followers, and I was like, I think outside of Islam, he's in like number 2 basically. And like I was like, oh crap, like this guy is like a big name, and I'm like, it makes sense, you know, like he may not have like people who are like super distant and only watching like maybe 1 or 2 pay-per-views a year, but people that are watching the big pay-per-views, like they're not going to go and watch, maybe they wouldn't watch Drickus for Sean, but they'd watch like most of the other ones, or they're not watching a Pantoja main evented pay-per-view. But the people who are watching the other pay-per-views, they're tuning in for Khamzat, you know, and he has that worldwide demographic too.
Yeah.
So
my number 7, I went with Charles Oliveira. I think, like you said, Dustin and Charles are like the same pretty much. They're just lovable fighters who always put on good performances. I went with Charles a little bit higher because Dustin is like really that American man, which UFC is an American company. He has 5.4 million followers about. Dustin and Charles has 8 million. So Charles is he just has that little bit of edge where it's like he's a little bit more lovable, usually a little bit more excited. Like, I don't know if you can say more exciting, but there's just something about him that he's a bigger name. Charles Oliveira, he's been champion with title defenses, one of the best lightweights ever. He just has a little bit more going for him than Dustin does, I think. And even at this point in time, with it being Dustin's fight, I think with a whole nation of Brazil behind you, it's doing so many pay-per-view buys. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
He's one of those fighters that you just want to see him succeed. You want to watch him.
Yeah, and I think you have to think about these regional fighters right now, like if we had a Canadian who was actually good, like, of course you want to support them. So the fact that Brazil has Charles Oliveira, they had him when he was a champion, like, it's so much momentum for this fighter. All
right, my number 6, another one of those lovable fighters, a guy you already mentioned. I have Max Holloway at 6, maybe a little bit high, but like he doesn't have the followers. He doesn't have the Instagram followers that some of these other guys do. I think he's only around 4 million. But just like...
Only.
Yeah.
Catch up to Donson's
We hit
corner,
250... maybe we haven't even hit 250 yet.
I think we have.
he just has everyone.
Yeah.
You know, he maybe doesn't have the international market some of the other people does, but like he's got those kids, he's got us, you know, he's got the Unks.
He's got the clips, bro.
He's got everyone, and people know who he is from his clips, from what he's done in the ring. I always call it the ring, the octagon. People, I'm surprised nobody gets mad at me for calling it the ring.
I know.
It's not WWE. This is not scripted. Shut up. All right. But like, is it called? No, it's the boxing's the ring too. Yeah. Oh my word. Like, it's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that Max Holloway, like, no matter what his name's on, it's gonna be huge. You know, and like the UFC loves to promote him. He is the good guy of the UFC. He's the superhero. He is their like Mr. Couldn't do anything wrong. You know, so he's always going to have people backing him as the hero of whatever fight he's in.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick. I'm interested to see if the comments agree with your ranking of him higher or my ranking of him lower. I think maybe just because of that Justin Gaethje 300 clip, he might be a little bit higher than like a Charles right now. But
I'd be interested to see what his Instagram followers were prior to 300.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean,
I'd say he probably gained a good 500K.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, or more.
Well, you also had people who were coming into the UFC because of UFC 300.
Yeah,
you brought in a whole new wave of fans.
Yeah, your younger sibling and their whole friend group.
They were watching 300. Yeah. You know, so.
All right, my number 6. This is where I have Alexander Volkanovski. I think because he's still champion, like still fighting for championships compared to Dustin, Charles, Max, I think you see his name, you know it's going to be a championship fight still.
If only Max didn't leave featherweight, we would have been having Volk Holloway 4.
Volk Holloway 4. I just think Volk has so much pull with the casual fan base, with how many title defenses he had. Like, he's just been at the very top level of the best division or top 3 divisions in the UFC for so many years now. He had that Makhachev fight, which just put his stock through the roof. Like, even though he lost that first one, like, it was the most skilled fight maybe of all time. I think the Australian crowd is a really passionate one. Like, we've heard them on fight nights, pay-per-views. They're just always one of the loudest crowds consistently, and they have a lot of passion for their fighters. You know, they still think Rob Whittaker's getting the belt back, which he's not, but yeah, we can all hope. I just think Volk is still one of the biggest names in the sport. And if we look at Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, you know, they might be on the same level as Volk. But the difference is Lucas Tracy's buying 100,000 pay-per-views of a Volk pay-per-view just to push him over that line, just to give him a little bit more extra cash. You know, the Lucas Tracy Volk interview, that's pushing Volk up to the next level.
I think it's interesting. I was just thinking about, like, if we would have filmed this video, I mean, a year ago before we even had this channel, I honestly think there's a chance we would have had better lists, because I think when you're looking at a list like this, you have to look at it from a casual's perspective. You know, you have to look at it as like, oh, I don't know any. You have to pretend you don't know anyone. Oh, what name? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's why like the Instagram followers helps to be like a guideline for it.
It does, yeah. But it's also not everything.
Yeah, it's not like, you know.
Because I don't follow most fighters on
Dude,
Instagram.
I just followed Pereira today on Instagram. And Charles. I was like, because I follow a bunch of the fighters on like the Dodson's Corner. Actually, I follow like 10 fighters on the Dodson's Corner account. That's all I need. But I follow a couple fighters today.
Yeah. You follow Leon Edwards.
I don't follow Leon.
You follow Izzy's brother.
I follow Sean Brady. All right, moving on. Top 5 time. This is where it gets interesting. Like the top 5, it's like, oof.
Right. I got spicy top 5, by the way.
Number 5, I have Ilia Topuria.
Okay.
I mean, I think the only thing holding him back 2 years from now, maybe 3 years, he could be number 1 on this list. All right. But at the point he is right now, he still maybe doesn't have the unks. You know, he has those 2 big wins over Volk and Holloway, where he surely would have gotten millions of eyes seeing him. You know, he's fighting 2 guys that have already been named on my list.
Gained 4 million followers last year.
Yeah. You know, like he is on the up and up and up, but the 4 guys ahead of him, just a little bit longer have been going on.
Yeah.
You know, so he's at such a hot point, but the guys ahead of him are, you know, they just have been doing it a little bit longer, kicking it a little longer. He's on this year. You know, 2024 was a year of him.
Yeah.
Other guys have been.
This is my number 5. This is where it gets spicy. I got Khamzat Chimaev.
Okay, I don't hate that.
At number 5. Bro, when I saw the Instagram followers, I was mind blown. And I think I realized that, like, I think UFC was maybe the biggest in the COVID era, just when people had absolutely nothing to do, and the UFC was the only sport.
And this guy was fighting
every week.
Yeah.
He was on every weekend. So, of course, when people have nothing to do on their phones, they're going to just follow Khamzat Chimaev, because why not?
Yeah.
Now we all have lives, and we can't just spend every day.
Yeah, and a new favorite app.
What? Jerkmate? Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro. I can't believe I got that. Yeah, we've been playing a lot of ranked games recently.
We're
Grandmaster. Oh, we're cooked, man. Hamzat Chimaev, though, I think with a Hamzat Chimaev fight, if he gets in the cage, like we're saying, his name is confirmed on the pay-per-view and he fights, you are not missing that fight.
No.
There's no way anyone from the ages of 18 to 30 is missing a Hamzat Chimaev fight. So I just think he's one of the biggest draws right now, especially with his status in middleweight now. He was pretty highly ranked in welterweight. Now he's the number one contender. He's massive, bro. He's massive.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, moving on. Number 4. The difference between these two guys was so close because it's like a guy who probably has more fans or the guy that's so hot right now, international sensation. But at number 4, if there was a pay-per-view next month with bums on it and you had to have this guy in the main event or another guy, I went Islam Makhachev at 4. And this might be low because I think he might be number 1 in turn, or he's in the top of Instagram followers, you know. But I just think, you know, coming off of his last 2 wins, you know, he had that Dustin win. That fight didn't have a ton of hype on it, you know? And then you have the 311 win with the Moicano win. Everyone's forgotten about that already. You know, we're filming our video of, you know, best fights of the year. And I'm like, what was that 311 main event? And I was like, oh yeah, it was Islam Moicano. You know, he's not at a point where he's at an all-time high in his popularity. And, you know, come summertime, when if it is Makhachev versus Topuria, holy cow, you know, like, what is going to happen? You know, Jeepers Creepers.
Holy smokes, Batman.
It's going to be insane. But right now, he's just had a little bit of a lull. He's had a little bit of a lull right now where there's
That's
other
fair.
guys who are a little bit hotter than him right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. For my number 4, this is where I have Ilia Topuria. As much as I glaze the man, I think, yeah, you're right. He's not in the point of his career where he's the biggest. He hasn't peaked yet. He's on a steep incline, but he hasn't peaked. So I think he still has room to grow, which is exciting for the UFC. But like we said, I think he has the nation of Georgia and Spain, which are two very passionate nations, which obviously helps him a lot. So you're getting a ton of pay-per-view buys. His highlight KOs speak for himself, so the marketing is very easy for him. As a casual fan, I think you go into a Topuria fight, if you know who he is, you know that you're going to get a finish probably, or at least some bombs. Like, you know it's going to be a great fight. So, and the level he's fighting at right now, you know it's going to be the highest level fight. So I think he's great. It's just he hasn't been around long enough to capture everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, maybe someone who hasn't watched UFC in 2 years doesn't know who he is. Like my cousins used to be pretty into UFC back in the 2017, 2020 era, like around there. They wouldn't even know Topuria.
They're like, who's this guy?
Exactly.
This guy beat Volk and Max?
Yeah,
No way.
Exactly.
You're
back
lying.
to back KOs.
All right, my number 3. This is where I have Alex Pereira. This dude, I mean, if we're looking at the UFC right now, he is the face. He is the face of the UFC right now. Every week he's in a different country with some different, culturally significant people. You know, it's like how are you training, but also all over the world, man? It's like what Ankalaev said. Like, this guy is not taking me seriously. He's flying all around the world.
Yeah,
you know. But that's just the point where Pereira is right now. He is turning into like a global sensation, like one of those athletes that's like globally known, and we're seeing it happen right in front of our eyes, and it's honestly, I feel like it's through his own actions. You know, it's not like it's the UFC making him do this. He's the one that's putting on those highlight performances. He's getting the performance of the night every time. He's being active, you know? Like, after this title defense, if he wins, it's the most active title defenses in a 12-month span.
It's just since John Jones, like 12 years ago or something, which is crazy. 12 months, 4 title defenses. Speed running the UFC.
Yeah,
bro.
he is the face of the UFC right now. And if there was a pay-per-view next month, he is the guy who's going to get the 3rd most buys.
That's fair. I have Islam Makhachev at my number 3. Like you said, he's just one of the most popular fans from the Russia, like the most popular active fighter from Russia right now. The followers speak for themselves. The amount of pay-per-view buys he does speaks for themselves. But if you actually look at the pay-per-view buys for 2024, I did do some research on this video for once. And what card did he headline last?
302.
302,
yeah.
And 302 was not on there.
Well, that card was dumb.
Even close. But Pereira's cards are.
That's true.
And Pereira is on junk cards as well, but it's just Pereira.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at Islam Makhachev versus Pereira, star power-wise, if they're fighting nobodies, I think Makhachev is just slightly less exciting because he's thought of as a wrestler.
It's so close.
It's if Makhachev was a striker, It's not even close.
Yeah.
But since Makhachev is a wrestler, even though he's one of the most exciting fighters right now, no more to say. There's no more to say. He's a great fighter, but doesn't draw as many pay-per-views as the top two guys.
All right, moving on to my number 2. This is where I have John Jones.
Bro, are you always stealing my thunder?
Really? I'm stealing that thunder? But yeah, do you have him at 2?
Thunder. Well, am I on my number 2?
I guess we're both on 2.
No, I have Alex Pereira at my number 2.
Okay, but we'll talk about that later. Number 2, I have John Jones. He's the GOAT. He's the guy that's getting every single unk coming around for a John Jones card.
It's crazy.
The amount of beer being consumed. Those liquor stores going out of business.
The amount of wives being...
Oh.
Sorry.
But besides that, it's the greatest of all time. He is... Outside of the guy who's number 1, he's the biggest active draw right now. And I think especially because he's at the end of his career, and there's only one fight left for him to make too, so it's even bigger. There's potential for his upcoming fight to be the biggest fight of all time. The biggest draw, best-selling card,
Yeah.
It's John Jones. You can't really say much more than that. Mm-hmm. He's the GOAT. Whatever he touches, he fought Stipe, and it was huge, so...
So dumb, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got Pereira at my number 2. Everything you said, he's just global now. He's global, like the fans he can pull in a country that he doesn't speak the language.
Korea.
It's crazy. Like, when has Korea ever been obsessed with the UFC or a fighter?
Now.
Yeah.
Pereira.
I guess.
Shama.
I guess maybe the Korean Zombie might be the last time. Yeah, and then just like. His YouTube channel does pretty well. Obviously, he has a good amount of followers on Instagram. The highlight KOs, it's a big moment when Dana White posts the full clip unedited on Instagram right after the fight. And Pereira's had quite a few of those now.
Yeah.
Even his loss to Adesanya, that gained him popularity because that was the biggest clip of 2022, I think it was. So just everything he does, it turns to gold.
Yeah.
You can put him on a pay-per-view with Khalil Roundtree and it'll still do decent.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Number 1.
I can't believe I forgot him.
I was
he's not active, bro.
He's not active. I didn't know if it was cheating, but I mean,
we would have had the same list.
Much. He was rumored last year, and we all know what happens. Number 1's Conor McGregor. If this guy actually ever does come back to the UFC, it's gonna be unreal.
I got Sean Brady at my number 1. The GOAT.
But yeah, we saw what happened with 303 in preparation for it. The amount of pay-per-views, I think it was the highest selling within the first 24 hours, 48 hours.
Something like that.
Everyone was like, "Oh, I'm buying the pay-per-view." I'm so excited.
You got scammed, brother.
Yeah, Poeton.
Yeah, well, it's not that bad.
I know, but it's Conor McGregor. He is the UFC. No one is the UFC like Conor McGregor. He made the UFC what it is today. He truly is the global superstar to come out of the UFC.
How many followers do you think he has?
I don't know.
Yes.
In a 20 mil?
I feel like he has 40 mil.
He might. In a sport like the UFC, which is
46 mil. He
might
clear.
have more than the top, the rest of my top 10 combined.
Yeah, he's clear.
Yeah. In a sport that's, it's turning more international, but UFC is an American sport. It's all about America.
Khabib has 38. Holy. Woo. That fight, bro. That's crazy.
Let's do it right now. Run it back, 2025. Khabib versus Conor. But yeah.
Numbers.
It's the Notorious for a reason.
Khabib promoting a credit card on story? Bro needs to pay off the Khabib Eagle Gym?
Don't trust. If next month they're like, Conor's coming back.
It's doing a million pay-per-view.
It would be the biggest thing in UFC history.
Not history, but...
In terms of money and
sales,
just because UFC's bigger now.
Yeah.
If we're looking at comparisons...
inflation adjusted.
If we're looking at comparisons, nothing will maybe ever be better than Conor Khabib.
2.8 or 2.6 mil pay-per-view buys. I think it's double the next one, pretty much, almost. Don't quote me on that. My number 1, John Jones, though.
Yeah.
If we're talking about active, they're not active. They're hardly active. I don't know if John Jones is considered an active heavyweight fighter, but just looking at the 309 gate and the pay-per-view buys, it was the biggest card of 2024. So that proves, even if he's fighting old man Stipe, he's still the biggest draw.
He sells.
Crazy. As crazy as it is, even though he's 38 or, just old as bricks now, he's still somehow the biggest draw that the UFC has. And it's just because of his legacy. And, when someone like that is undefeated in their career, pretty much undefeated, Matt Hamill doesn't count. You tune in almost as a hate watch. If you love him, you're going to watch. If you hate him, you tune in because you want to see him lose. So John Jones is just that polarizing figure where it's like, you got to watch even if you hate him.
Yeah.
So that's why.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Go down to those comments. Let us know who was the most surprising person you saw on our list today. You know, like I feel like it was a list where, or who you were surprised you didn't see on here. You know, while you guys are down there, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. Appreciate all the love and support. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.